Let's talk about how you can improve your art so fast it feels illegal. Zoom, zoom, so fast, we speeding out here. But seriously, step one, what do you actually want to make? So this is actually a big question you need to ask yourself. And the answer here might not be as obvious as you think. You really have to know yourself to figure out what it is that you want to make. Now, you might be easily impressed by things that you see online. You have an idea of what is impressive to other people, and then you might convince yourself that that is what you actually want to make. That doesn't mean that you actively have to fight against the urge to follow trends, but I do think that you need to pay close attention to yourself, develop a lot of self-awareness to figure out what it is that you want to make. And a couple of things that you need to consider here is what type of process works for you. Are you someone who really likes planning things out? Are you someone who likes an intuitive process? What does your process look like? How many steps are there? And then you also want to consider your medium. What medium do you like working in? Do you like working in pencils and just sticking to pencils? You can just do all your work in coloring pencils. Do you like watercolor? Do you like inks? You really gotta have to play around and figure out what it is that resonates with you. And that will take time. That is not something that will happen fast. You have to experiment and really figure yourself out. This is where, if you're slightly older, it can be helpful, because if you are someone who's older, you might have a lot more self-awareness. Not saying that if you're young, you don't have it, but with age, we tend to become more self-aware and we tend to be less easily influenced by external factors. But if you are young, really consider developing your level of self-awareness here. Every time you see a piece online that really impresses you, ask yourself, do you actually want to make that same piece? And what you have to consider here is the amount of time it takes to do that piece. Is that the medium you actually would want to work in? For example, for me, I love a lot of digital artists. There's tons of digital artists that I absolutely adore. Their work is beautiful. But I am someone who needs to ink on paper. I need my piece of paper, I need my ballpoint pen in my hand, and therefore I know that there's a specific art style that would work for me. And then when I see online work that is very different from that, when I see painters who do beautiful renderings that take 100 hours, I can admire that art, but I know that that isn't for me. And that's totally fine, right? That's totally fine. There's so many different kinds of art in the world. I'm just not going to be making that type of art. I can appreciate it from afar, but I know that that isn't for me. Once you have a sense of what the art you want to make looks like, we really want to ask ourselves, who is making art similar to what I want, right? So that's step number 2. Figure out who are these artists who are making the work that really aligns with your taste. And then you want to start breaking down what they are doing that you like. So you might be a combination of many artists. There might be 5-6 different artists who do different things well. Like maybe one artist does colors in a way that you find very beautiful, while a different artist does the character designs that you like. Really pay attention to these artists, save them into a folder, save their work into a folder, and figure out what is it about these pieces that you really enjoy. And you have to pay very close attention to the elements of art and what parts of the artistic style that you actually like. So you can like someone's artistic subject matter, for example. Maybe the subject matter that you see in a specific artist's work, or like their themes, maybe you love that, but you don't like the way they handle colors. So you can take the themes out of that artist, but then leave the colors behind. And with this process, you'll eventually end up with something that's very unique. Your style will end up being unique based on the combination of artists that you like. 2 things to consider here is the art style and personal voice. So art style is like the surface level things. It's how they handle color, lines, the textures, these types of things. And then also the personal voice side of things. The personal voice I consider more like, what is the subject matter? Why are they making the art that they make? Where is their inspiration coming from? Are they someone that's deeply inspired by fantasy art? Are they deeply inspired by abstract art? Like those subject matter details. I want you to think about both sides here, the art style and also the personal voice, because the personal voice is very important, because that helps you understand why they make art or where a lot of their inspiration comes from. For example, a lot of my art is inspired by tattoo designs, because there's a portion in my life where I really wanted to become a tattoo artist, studied a lot of tattoos, and therefore my art actually comes from that place. A lot of my inking comes from being inspired by tattoo artists. And knowing that piece of detail can help you understand why certain artists resonate with you. Now that we have figured out the artists that we want to emulate, or the different aspects of different artists that we want to emulate, now we have to ask ourselves what technical skills would help us achieve that. So for example, if there's an artist who does a lot of figure drawings and you absolutely adore anatomy is top notch for you. Every time you see an artist who does great figures, you get inspired, you want to draw like that, then you know that the technical skill that you want to learn is anatomy. Therefore, studying anatomy will be helpful. And that is the path that you need to take to improve in that direction. Now, when we come to studying, we still want to do personal pieces. So we don't want to end up in a loop where we only do studies and never apply to finished pieces. The reason why we want to have our inspiration board of artists who we want to emulate is so that we can make our own personal pieces and compare it against our inspiration. And when you do this loop where you do make your own pieces, compare it against the artists that you like, and then also improve the technical skills on the side for like 20% of the time maybe, then you'll improve really quickly because you have a clear path in where you want to head. You can compare your work in a way that is productive. You know which technical skills that you need to work on because we've written them out. We have it all laid out, and that will help you improve a lot faster. And the final step here is to get addicted to making art through love and discipline. So there's going to be a little bit of discipline here. You're not always going to feel like drawing, but ultimately, this has to come from a place of love. Your art practice should come from a place of joy, and you want to keep making sure that your art practice feels enjoyable because it's not going to be sustainable if you have to force yourself every single time. I assume that you're a hobbyist. I assume that you're someone who makes art for the sake of love, for the sake of enjoyment. So really pay attention to that. Just because you want to improve does not mean that you should abandon the things that you enjoy. So if you start to do this process where you've laid out the artist that you want to emulate and you start studying and all of that feels painful, it doesn't feel fun, it doesn't feel exciting, then stop. That means that this is not the path for you. If you start to emulate artists who do not align with who you are, it will not be enjoyable. That is why step number 1 was developing self-awareness and understanding of what you actually want to make. The way you know you're making the work that you actually want to be making is that it will feel energizing. It will feel exciting. It might be slightly uncomfortable at first, especially if you haven't done personal work before. If you're new to doing the work that you truly want to make, it can feel uncomfortable for a bit. But as you push through that discomfort, it should lead you to a place of infinite energy and infinite joy. That is truly how you know you're on the right path. But it will take a little bit of discipline as well, right? So I'm not saying it's going to be all rainbows and sunshines all the time, right? That's not realistic. Some days you're just going to be tired. Some days you're going to feel frustrated that you're not where you want to be at, right? Like some of those frustrations are natural. That's totally fine. But the foundation of the practice should be joy. Keep tapping back into that feeling. Once that feeling starts to run away from you, if it's harder to grasp that feeling, really sit back and touch base. Figure out why that feeling is running away. What's going on? Is it other parts of your life that are messy that's making this harder? Or is it just that you've been putting too much pressure on the art? Are you using way too much force to make yourself improve? Those things can really take away from the practice. Ultimately, it's going to be the moment-to-moment joy that you feel while making the art that will matter. Is what will make this sustainable. So if you want to improve quickly, the love is highest priority because that is what will sustain you, is what will make this all worth it. If you are interested in this kind of like art style exploration, I'm currently working on a module around art style and personal voice for my mindful drawing course that will be linked below. In our mindful drawing course, we focus on intuitive drawing and self-expression. So I am working on a module where we will discuss these steps and I will actually walk you through how to do this on a practical level. If you are interested in that, check out the link below. It's not going to be done until February probably. I'm giving myself room here just to really explore it and figure out how to teach this stuff. But if that is of interest to you, make sure to check out the link below. And if you are interested in getting more art advice in your email inbox once in a while, every couple of days, just to keep you encouraged, I also have a link below. Sign up for the newsletter so I can keep in touch. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.